Hello, my name is Darrell Robert Schoon, and today I've got a special treat for you. I am going to explain the world's #1 card trick. Now, with most performances of magic, the key is you don't explain to the audience what's going on. This is a cardinal rule of magicians, unless, of course, it's part of your act. Well, I'm not a part of this magical act that has performed, that keeps this card trick in motion. But I hope today to explain this card trick in such a way that you will understand it. Now, for a card trick to be successful, for any act of magic to be successful, you can't understand it. It has to look like real. And for example, it may be David Copperfield with a 747, and he comes out on stage, and there you are, and there's a 747, and he does something, and you may be in Las Vegas or Washington on CNBC, and the 747 disappears. Now, you know this can't be going on. Why? Because you know it's a magic trick. Okay? In other magic tricks, what they do right in front of you, they do something called misdirection. They may, for example, take some cards, go like this, and they'll do something, and all of a sudden the card that you are supposed to be watching and you think you are watching, in fact, you're sure you're still watching, is gone. This, a good magician, it's called misdirection. So part of the success of the magic act is you don't see really what's going on. You see only what you see, and you believe what you see to be real and the only thing that's happening. That truly is the secret to any good magic act. Now, what I want to do is explain to you the world's #1 card trick. All right? This is how it is. But I want to explain it to you from how you see it first, and then I'm going to explain it to you from the standpoint of the magician. All right? Here you are. And it's something that you have either done yourself, or you know somebody who's done, or it's familiar enough, I'm going to explain it to you in that way. These are cards, okay? They look like money, all right? But they're really cards. That's the secret of a card trick, all right? Now, the trick is not like 3-card Monte or, you know, any number of one of those things. This is called, this is a really good trick. It's called buying your house. This is a trick that has been played on a lot of you. All right? Now, I'm going to explain what it looks like to you. All right? And who are you? You're the chump. All right? You're the person that's been played in the game. All right? You're the person that they're playing the trick on. Okay? Now, so what you do, and this is the beautiful part of it, you approach them first. All right? You approach them first. It looks like an act of volition. And in fact, it is. But it's been carefully set up so you want to do it. All right? Now, when you're buying your house, it's because you have a dream home. This is something you want. You want some stability. You want something like that. So you approach this. Who's doing the trick? Well, the person doing the trick is called a banker. All right? Not a magician. If you knew he was a magician, he'd be the last person you're going to go to do a trick. You're not going to go down and watch the card shark in Las Vegas and ask him to do this, because you know you're being played. All right? Now, the banker is not going to make it look like you're being played at all, because that's part of the trick. That's part of the thing. What the banker will do, he'll dress up in a suit like this. This is a banker suit. This is English gabardine, and it's pinstriped. The vest, the gold chain. This is all part of the banker's garb. What the banker doesn't do, he doesn't want to look like what he really is, a charlatan, a magician, and a con man. Well, not a con man. But confidence is a great deal part of the game. So to help you understand what's going on, I'm going to wear this today. All right? This is a little more familiar to you, all right? The people in Las Vegas, the card sharks, the dealers, the people behind the table. So you approach me, the banker. Why? Because you want to buy a house, all right? And I'm sitting here in my three-piece suit, my gold chain, and not even looking perhaps as good as this, but the bank looks very, very substantial, all right? Looks like a church, okay? Looks big pillars, you know, it's got all the bells and whistles of stability. And you approach the banker and you say, Mr. Banker, I want to buy a house, and you're coming to me for a mortgage. I'm going to loan you the money. You need me to loan you the money to buy this house, all right? So let's say this house is selling for $250,000, all right? This is a few years ago, and you approach me, and as a banker, as a prudent man, I need a down payment. I'm not just going to loan you the money to buy a house. I mean, I'd be a fool if I wrote you a $500,000 mortgage and you're a clerk at Circle K, all right, making $11.50 an hour. I only did that between 2002 and 2006. All right? I would never do that before then. All right? I only did it then, and I've explained to you those were special circumstances. But generally, you would approach the banker, me, all right? But I'm really the magician. I'm really the card shark, all right? I'm playing a card trick on you, okay? So you approach me with $50,000 because I want 20% down. I'm a prudent banker. All right, I'm not going to give you 8% down, 5% down. I'm going to look at your bank account. I'm not going to give you a liar's loan. I am a prudent man. Okay, so you come into me and you give me $50,000. That's what I require to buy a $500,000 house when times were usual. Okay, so I accept this. So you give this to me. All right, now what I then do is you give me the papers. All right, and you're going to need $250,000 to buy this house. So this is what you give me for the down. I take it. Gone. All right, it's now gone. I'm going to give you something. Okay, now what am I going to give you? Well, I'm going to give you approximately $250,000. Okay, these are, so you need 25, these are 10,000 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 150,000, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200,000, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250. I'm going to give you $250,000 to buy the house because that's what you want. You've already given me, this is a sophisticated card trick, okay? We're dealing with a full deck here. This deck is expandable, infinitely expandable, all right? So you've given me 5 of these, 50,000, and I'm going to give you 250,000. Now, to you, it looks like a great thing. I'm doing you a favor, all right? I'm doing you a favor, all right? You've given me 5 of these, or 50,000, I'm going to give you $250,000 back to buy the house. Now, here's the 5 that you gave me. Here's the 250. Now, you never see this. You never, ever see this. Okay? How do you know I've given this to you? The reason you know I've given you this is because I give you a piece of paper that transfers title in your name to you saying that you've got a mortgage now. $250,000 mortgage. Okay? Or whatever it is. Let's say $250,000, okay? Instead of $200,000. Let's say the house costs $300,000, right? So you got to, well, $250,000. Let's say you owe $200,000. That's really what it is. You owe $200,000, okay? So, you never see this. But you know, quote, I've given it to you because I've transferred the title to you on this property. You can go live in it. You have rights. You can shoot somebody who comes on your property if you live in Florida. You can stand your ground. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can fight over it with your wife or husband when you divorce. You can give it to the kids. Any number of things happen that prove that I have given you this, even though you don't see it. Okay? So, what you begin to do when you move in the house, you start making payments. Okay? On a $250,000 mortgage, let's say at 7%, which was usual until a few years ago, you would start making payments of a little over $2,000 a month for 30 years. Let's say a 30-year loan, okay? Over 30 years, you're going to make payments on a house that you bought for $250,000, price of $250,000. I've loaned you $250,000. You've already given me 50 grand down. You're going to make payments of not only of this $250,000, which you haven't seen, equal to this, you're going to make payments of an additional $500,000. $500,000 in addition to the $250,000 that you paid for the house. So what you've really done as part of this phenomenal card trick, you're paying $770,000 plus the $50,000 that you already thrown in for a $250,000 house. You're paying a total of this much. That's an amazing card trick. Amazing card trick. You walked into this place of your own accord, dreams for the house you thought a lot about it. The backyard was right. You know, had the detached garage, place for the dog, maybe a place for a swimming pool you put in later. Okay? You negotiated with the previous owner. He wanted $285. You countered with $210, maybe $180. All right. Went through, got the comps on it, signed it, $250,000. What happened as a part of this phenomenal card trick is that you got what you wanted, which is what did you want? You wanted the house. But you wanted to pay for that house at $250,000. Okay? That was a big deal. You and the wife looked over your finances. You weren't going to pay $3.25. $3.25 is absurd for that house. All right? You were hoping to steal it for $210, $220 if the guy was desperate. But you paid fair market value at the time, $250,000, which is approximately, as I said before, 1/3 of what you're ultimately going to pay. You ended up paying, over 30 years, $770,000, but the 50 grand you put down for the house that you thought you were buying for $250,000. Now, that's a phenomenal card trick. All right? And it was all done with cards. Okay? Well, where did the misdirection come from? How did this happen to you? Well, how it happened was there was parts of the trick that you didn't see. The secret to every card trick is the part that you don't see that explains really how David Copperfield made that 747 disappear. That's a secret of every card trick. Well, let's go to the guy who played the trick on you. Mr. Banker. Except this Mr. Banker looks like those guys in Las Vegas who's dealing it at 21 or something like that. You know, he's just sitting there dealing the cards. All right? Now, to Mr. Banker, this is what he did. He's Mr. Banker, and you walked into him. All right? Now, Mr. Banker is going to look very substantial. He's going to have a serious face, and he's going to ask to see your papers. Unless it was between 2002 and 2006, where he'd give you any amount of money because he had a bigger game going on that he was playing on more than you. In that game between 2002 and 2006, he was playing the game on the whole world. All right? He burned people in Australia, retirees in Europe, bank, insurance companies, even the banks, even some of the other banks. Phenomenal game for that period. But this is what he did. This is how he saw it from his end. Okay? You walked into his bank, and he knew that you wanted to buy a house. So you gave him these cards. He looked at your cards. He knew these cards were good. They print them. They know what these are. They're not going to look to see if they're marked. No. They're already marked. You're the mark. So he takes it, puts it aside. Okay, I'm going to need this. All right? And then he goes, you want a $250,000, okay, which is, let's say, this much, a third of the pile you're going to originally pay for the whole thing. And he's going to be real serious about giving this to you. All right? Real serious. He's not going to just hand it over unless it's between 2002 and 2006 in the United States, where he handed everything over for nothing, called liar loans. All right? He's going to hand it over. But he's going to make it look like he's really being serious about it. And he is, sort of, usually. But what did he do? Where did he get this that you never saw? This is the misdirection. This is the part of the trick that you don't see. You're just back home with a wife, hoping that the petunia is going to put in that your dreams. The granite counter in the kitchen. The barbecue in the backyard. That's what you're thinking about when you go home at night. And you've never seen this. Where is he going to come up with $250,000, the $250,000 that he's going to give you to pay for the house that you want, the house of your dreams? And you're really serious. And you know what you think? You're the mark in the game. You're the chump. You're the one being played. You think he's going to loan you his money, the bank's money. That's why he's so serious. That's why he wants to make sure everything's good. You're copacetic, that you're a man of your word, your bond. You know where he got this? You know where he came up with $250,000? It isn't even his. What gave him the ability to play this game is he's got some other money. All right? Over here, this is his money. And with this money and the right connections, he bought a license. From who? Government. Now, not everybody can get this license. This is a real closed game. All right? This is the game of a license to basically print money out of nowhere. All right? Now, I know you don't have this license because you're the mark in the game. All right? These are special people who get this license. So they buy the bank license. All right? Now, you, the mark, are thinking, this guy, this rich banker, has got all these assets, all this money. They're going to take $250,000 of their assets and loan it to me, and I am duly thankful. I feel trustworthy. I am going to work to the bone to show this man I'm a man of my word. I'm not going to go back on my word. I've got my name in that line, my family's honor on it. Okay? Now, this banker out there, he doesn't want you to see him as a card shark. All right? He wants you to see him as Mr. Respectable. Why? Because that's part of the game. Where did he come up with $250,000 to pay off that house that you wanted to buy? Because then he's going to get you to pay him. Because what happens, once he does that, once he has you on the line, you are committed, you or somebody else is eventually, who assumes that loan, to paying him, the bank, $777,000 in the next 30 years. Plus the 50 you've given him, we're over $800,000. All right? Now, where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from your work, your productivity. You're going to have to earn it. All right? In the future. This is what he is. He's banking that this is what you're going to do. That's why he's concerned about it. Does this guy have the word? If I give this to him, is he going to pay off for it? And he's really serious about it. And you think, man, this guy's really serious. It's an honor that he's going to give me this $250,000. Well, where is that $250,000 going to come from? He bought this license with a little bit of money over here. All right? And then, like people like you, your neighbors, other people came in. You came into his bank because he's got a license to do this now. And you started giving him money. Some gave him this. Some gave him this. Some gave him this money. And so what happens is he ends up, as a banker, with a whole lot of other people's money. Other people's money, not his. He's got his money. He bought the license. All right? And he's got some equity in the bank. All right? It isn't that he has nothing. He's got to have equity in the bank. But the money that goes out of the loan isn't his money. He has deposits from all of you, other marks, in aggregate, that he has like this, okay? This is all this pile of money. It's not his money. And then he gets to leverage this. He gets to make money out of thin air. All right? For every $1 million that the Fed drops into the money in a loan, they loan it to these banks, they're able to produce 5 times that amount of money. All right? So, with a, let's say a let's say $100 million base, deposits in the bank, eventually, they're able to float out in the whole aggregate thing $500 million based on that $100 million deposit pool. All right? Now, what do they pay all these people who put their money in the banks? Well, right now, they're paying, what is it, 1%, 0.9. Go to the bank, they'll give you 0.9%, less than 1%. All right? They take this money of yours, they add it up, and they multiply it. And they're able to take out this multiplication factor of the money that you, based on the money that you put in, and loan that money back to you to buy the damn house at, and you think you're getting a deal at 4%. And not only are you getting a deal at 4% right now, or 5%, it's less than 7%. For the first 10 years, 95% of that money is going to pay off the interest. Not even the principal. He's taking his money off the top. Why? Oh, because he's a bank. It's his money. He made that money up. The government allowed him, because he had a license, to make this paper up. And as long as he keeps his accounts in balance at that bank, he's cool. They check his numbers. They do check his numbers. They want to make sure that he's doing a juggling act, keeping his loan portfolio in balance with his assets. Now, how much does he really have at that bank to cover if anything goes wrong? All right? Let's say this bank has got $100 million out on loan, some of which is your $250,000. That's a hard loan. You've got a $250,000 loan at this bank. All right? And it counts. Now, how much does he have to keep in assets to make sure, to prove to the government that he's solvent? All right? He's got $100 million out there in loans. Okay? And the bank's examiners are going to come by this bank that you've gone to and make sure he's solvent enough to loan you and your friends or whatever, or take your money and keep this thing going. 100 million. How much does this banker need in his bank every day? $3 million. That's all he needs. $3 million. Now the big boys are supposed to have, and you go look it up on Google. They're supposed to have 10%. Let me assure you they don't. All right? They're supposed to have 10% of aggregate demand, all right, on these loans, okay? They don't have anywhere near that amount. Because as long as the thing keeps going, everybody paid off. You work your butt off, your neighbor works your butt off, your boss works his butt off, and they all go to the bank and they're all doing the same thing. And the banker is sitting there playing with your money, loaning it back to you, plus the leverage that the banking license gives him to do. So he's basically, with, let's say, $100 million, he's got hundreds of millions of dollars out on a loan that he's paying 1% interest on, and he's charging you anywhere from 4 to 10 to 15 to 20%. This is what they're doing. This is Mr. Banker. In the last program, I explained, at least partially, the secret behind what I call the world's greatest card trick. These are all cards. You call it money. It's a card trick. Because unless they had this, unless they used this special deck issued out of a central bank, they couldn't take advantage of your hard work and productivity. They couldn't do what they've done for approximately 300 years. All right? It's been an extraordinary card trick that you don't even know it's a trick. That's the beauty of the banker's card trick. That's the beauty of modern banking. It's a confidence game that you don't even know that you're being played. But in the last program, I showed they take things of what you want, which is everybody wants, all right? And they use it as a device to trick you into going into debt. Why is debt a part of the game? Why is debt a critical part of the banker's con game? Because that's how bankers make money. Bankers make money by loaning money. No loans, no profit. The more people who go into debt, the more money the bankers make. All right? These are the cards that the bankers use. We call it money. They're really, I don't even know it. These are chump cards. All right? But everybody wants it. Why they're valuable? Because you can buy things with these coupons. Amazing things with these coupons. Right now, their game has been so successful, you can buy anything you want with these coupons. I want to tell you something that Bernard Baruch said. Very few people know this. But the British were the ones who put this game together, the British bankers back in 1695. And they kept it together until it fell apart in the 1920s during the lead up to the Great Depression, the Great War. The British lost control because they didn't have the gold backing. The empire quit expanding, and that's when England lost control of the money. But the bankers saw this coming, and it jumped ship from the Bank of England. They put a carbon copy of the Bank of England in the United States called the Federal Reserve, all right? And they started using the same version of three-card money. It's called buy what you want, all right? But use our cards, all right? You got to use their cards. Why? Because this deck of cards are issued from a central bank, all right? If you're using a deck of cards, if you're using a deck of cards issued from the central bank, you're playing their game. And I would say the chances are probably overwhelming that you're the mark in the game. All right? You don't see yourselves as a mark in this game, but you truly are. As I explained to you in the previous program, for example, using the metaphor of a house, buying a house, you buy the house for $250,000, all right, and you end up paying over $800,000 for that house over the life of the loan. All right? Now, what has the banker done for that? You thought he loaned you his money. No. He loaned you your and your neighbors and other people's neighbors back to you, leveraged out to the degree that the government allows them to do it, and charges you far more interest than he gives you when you gave him the money. What you don't know is when you put your money in deposit in the bank, when you walk in that bank and give the bank $100,000, it's not your money anymore. You think it's your money on deposit at that bank. No. You've given up the rights to that money. You've got a loan. You have loaned the bank that money at 0.9%. It isn't your money anymore. Now, the bank has promised to pay you that money back on demand. Anytime you walk in there, you get to say, I want my $100,000 back. Now, I went and I said in the last program that the banks have loaned all this money out. Because what they loaned, the money they loaned you was the money, part of the money that you gave them in the first place, your neighbor's money, their neighbor's money, your money. So all that money has loaned to you at a much higher interest rate. All right? The bank is counting on one thing, that you and your neighbors don't walk in the bank that same day and ask for your money back. Because if they do, they don't have it. They don't have it. They don't have it. That's called a bank run. This is what happened during the 1930s. All right? The 1930s, banks, because they loaned so much money on stocks, all right, because everybody was making money, all right, so they allowed these people to buy stocks on margins. The game collapsed. The banks ended up with bad debts, couldn't cover what they had out, and they went broke. The banks went broke. It collapsed. People got scared. They all went to the banks at once, demanded their money back. The banks didn't have it. The banks closed. People lost all their savings. That's what happened in the 1930s. All right? It was so bad. The game was over. So they had to figure out another way to get you back in the game. And that's when they came up with 30-year loans for real estate. Before the 1930s, you couldn't walk into a damn bank and get 30-year mortgages on your house. Why? These people borrow their money short term, sometimes overnight. You know, they borrow, and all their deposit base is on demand. Somebody can walk in and demand their money back right then. And they're going to write you a loan for 30 years and have to wait it out for them to give it to you, dribble it back to you? Mm-mm. That's called borrowing short to lend long. And that, my friend, is dangerous. And bankers, they're not gamblers. Except the investment bankers are. They're the gamblers. And what they gamble is with your money, not theirs. All right? They're not gamblers. They're playing a fixed game. That's who they really are. They're Las Vegas. They're playing a fixed game. They're the house. They're the house. You guys are doing the working. You guys are doing the manufacturing. Or if you're in Asia, you're making stuff. If you're in the Middle East, you're pumping real stuff out of the ground, and they're giving you these things they print. Oh, I forgot to tell you what I was going to tell you at the end of the last program. Bernard Baruch. Bernard Baruch, when the United States put Bretton Woods together at the end of World War II, where the US dollar became the global reserve currency, he was really overjoyed. And you know what he told somebody? He said, this is wonderful. Now we can buy up everything in the world with paper, our paper money. He knew how important that was. Because those boys, this is the world's biggest card trick. Let me assure you, not all of them know what they're doing. Some of them are just functionaries. But the ones at the top, the ones who understand it, they really know how valuable this game is. And that's why they're fighting so hard with your money to preserve their power today. Well, the world's greatest card trick is in trouble. You can say, how could they be in trouble? I mean, what odds? They make a living. I mean, when you go to, you're the mark. You guys out there, you ought to put a big M on your forehead. All right? Or get a little paper hat and write a dunce hat and put M on it for Mark. All right? Instead of walking around with your jackets that say Oakland Raiders, you know, Houston Rockets, you know, or New York Yankees. Maybe you ought to walk around with something that says Mark, chump, played for a sucker. Because these people take your money, pay you very little for it, loan it back to you at very high interest rates, much higher interest rates, all right, and have the right to take your property if you don't make those payments. Those are great odds. Those are wonderful odds. And how do they do this? Because they get rich. You have to work. You have to do something productive. You either have to make a bet with your money to come out ahead, to bring that money in, or you have to put your hard labor in to get these pieces of paper that they make out of your money. They use your money to give themselves money, okay? But you don't get to do that. Only they do. All right? How do they get in trouble? I mean, these people own the game. They wrote the game. They wrote the game, so if nothing happens between 8 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock the next morning, if nothing happens except the game, you, the chump, the mark, are going to wake up the next morning owing more than you did when you went to bed. That's how interest works. It's time dependent. Time. Nothing else. Time. One day, so much interest. Second day, compounds. Third day, compounds. Compounds, compounds. The end of the month, you owe a lot more. unless you've made some payments, unless you've gone to work, unless you've done something productive, unless you held up a bank, which is productive. You got something out of nothing, but it took you to do it. And you risked your life in holding up that damn bank to pay that bank back. This. What did the banker do for that 30 days? He slept. And he kept track of you. He had your phone number. He had the loan book. And at the end of the month, he added it up. How much you paid and how much you owed. That's what he did. That's what he did. Now, what did you do? You went to work. You're a teacher. These kids screamed at you. They threw spit wads at you. Your principal abused you. And then these people on TV say you're the reason the country's going to hell. The teachers union is responsible for breaking this country. You know, that's what you did to pay off that loan. What did the banker do? He went to sleep and he kept track of you and your neighbor, your credit cards, everybody else. This is what they did. This is the greatest card trick in the world. And it's in danger of falling apart. Not because anybody has discovered the secret of the card trick. Oh, no. No. Everybody who is a victim of this card trick doesn't want it to end. You're afraid of what happens when this card trick stops. What's going to happen to your world? The world built on the greatest card trick that has ever happened. Because everything is based on this card trick. 300 years ago, only England had this particular iteration of this card trick. This card trick was so powerful, they took over the world. Because the bankers loaned them their cards, and England, as long as they paid them back and took over the world, they could fight wars on credit, they took over the world. Except for China and Russia. Okay? China and Russia. They were just too big for England to swallow. They went communist. Now, communism, they didn't use these cards. They knew how dangerous these cards were. But they had no alternative. So they muddled along. They just said, we're not going to, you can't do us. We're not going to use your paper. Get out of here. So they got guns and fought them off and ultimately screwed over their own country worse than maybe capitalism would have done to them. Millions died in China. Millions died in Russia. Why? Because under communism, they were under such threat from the boys in the game that they centralized all the power in the government. And when power is centralized, it becomes very, very, very dangerous for the rest of us. I don't care if you're a fascist country. I don't care if you're a communist country. I don't care if you're a king. I don't care if you're a dictator. If that power is held in a small circle, it's the most dangerous situation of all. Because people will do unconscionable things when they have unconscionable amounts of power. And that's what happened under communism. They got unconscionable amounts of power in the name of doing good. All right? What's happened, though? What happened is the game got so big. The game got huge. They took over the world. Everywhere in the world is playing this game. And now the game is going bad. Every morning I get up, for you have seen my website, and I look at the news. And I know what's going on. I know the wheels are coming off. And not only do I know why the wheels are coming off, I know why they're coming off. And I know the news doesn't want you to think that. Because if the news showed you what was going on, you'd be a lot more leery of this game. If you knew that banker was really a shyster, you would never look at the banks the way you have. You would understand it. But I want to assure you, the banks have nothing to fear from you. You haven't done to the bankers. Your awareness hasn't grown up. They go, hey, I'm stopped. I'm not a mark anymore. I'm not going to play victim. This mouse is going to bite the, bite the tongue of that cat the next time he comes around. No. The reason why the predator, why you're going to be free, is Marx was right. He said the capitalists are going to kill themselves. The bankers are going to do it to themselves. Now Marx, he only had a piece. He wasn't the end all to be all. He just basically said this game is unfair, and he was right. And he wasn't the first one who said it. The first one who said it was Thomas Jefferson. The first people who called this game unfair were the Americans. And they said, if you allow this game, private bankers to issue these coupons as your money, they're going to end up owning the land that you live on and foreclosing on your homes, and you're going to find yourself homeless in your land. He said that in the late 1700s and 1800s. And it happened. It happened. And now both political parties are owned by the private bankers. You're playing with these. It's a stacked deck, because when you play with this, the deck was stacked from the very beginning. Every dollar issued in the United States is issued in the form of debt. And you wonder why you're so indebted. You know why you wonder? It's part of the con game. So you won't know. You know, I used to think what we should do is just let everybody in the secret. Tell everybody really what's going on. And then we'll have a change. I want to assure you, I don't believe that anymore. Not at all. And I believe change is coming. And I believe big changes are coming. And I believe this world is going to be an extraordinary world after the changes. But I know why the changes are coming. And it's not because the marks are all of a sudden going to, oh my God, I've been a victim. I've been a fool. I've been played like a jerk. I've indebted myself, my family, the country, ad infinitum to these bankers. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen because they got so damn greedy that they blew up the game themselves. Their game started falling apart a long time ago. They are on their last legs. I don't care what Ben Bernanke tells you. I don't care what Mario Draghi says. I don't care what your prime ministers and your presidents and your governors talk about. I don't even care about their politics. Because what I know on this level, they're trapped. People go, why is my government bailing out the banks with my money? It's simple. Without the banking system, the government couldn't borrow the money to do what they want to do, and how they borrow the money is based on indebting you through taxation. They can tax you forever. Now, oh, taxes, aren't they horrible? Oh, these taxes they're paying for Medicare, Obamacare, Social Security. Entitlements are going to bankrupt us. Well, they're going to. But before they get to it, it was the military. That's how the game started. These bankers, with their coupons, got in the door, not by convincing banks and governments that you can help your people. You can create a safety net in terms of contraction to keep people eating. No, it wouldn't work at all. Governments didn't care in the 1700s and 1800s about helping people. They cared about one thing: war. War. The Bank of England came into being because the king allowed them to put this game into motion and give him the ability to fight war on credit. And our forefathers in this country saw it in the 1700s. They fought a war of revolution against this. Thomas Jefferson said, you let this in, that money's going to go to standing armies. It's going to go to war. And it did. Everybody talks about how important gold is. Gold is important. Very few people know why it's important, but it is important. And when the world went off the gold standard, the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was for one reason. It's a lot easier to print paper money and go to war with paper money than if you have to pay for it with gold. It was war on a level never before seen that caused Western Europe and Western nations to abandon the gold standard, to print money, to instigate the greatest carnage this world has ever seen. It was war that caused the United States to debase its entire currency after World War II and spend the greatest hoard of gold in the world on a global war machine that forced Nixon to abandon the gold standard in 1971. It was war. And then in the 80s, they figured out, you know what? We got to let the Democrats in on this deal because they're going to throw up a fuss. We've already bankrupted the House. All right? Let's get everybody. We'll let them spend just like we do. So after 1980, the Democrats and the Republicans just started. And that's when debt really took a hold. I'm talking to you 33 years after that. Game's over. Game's over. But it ain't going to get better until the game ends. You get up in the morning, you think about Krugman, you think about Summers, all these people say, I'm going to make it better, I'm going to make it better, I'm going to make it better. They can't make it better. It's gone too far. It's gone too far even to cut spending. It's like an alcoholic. If he stops drinking, his body's going to go into systemic shock. He's going to die. Paul Volcker raised the interest rates to 24.5% in 1981 and wrung the excess liquidity out of the U.S. system and saved it for a few more decades. But instead of building on the fiscal foundation that Volcker created, and he blew it away in the first place, Volcker was the one who pulled the gold window. He was the one who did what Nixon wanted him to do. People don't know it. People say, oh, Volcker's a hero. Volcker was a hero in 1980. It was like saving the house that he lit on fire. But he did do a great thing, because he did save it. But I want to tell you something. If you elected another man to come in as president, and he brought in somebody like Volcker, who would raise interest rates up to drain the excess liquidity, the patient would die. The patient would die. My metaphor about the fiscal health of this country is 1930s, it had a massive seizure. That's what the Depression was. A massive seizure. World War II came along, cleaned out all the debts, they started from fresh. They blew all the gold in the next 20 years. They took gold out in 1971. Reagan and the boys got in there, put the United States on a debt-based spending program. We went off to the races. Stock market exploded because of excess liquidity. And we had a heart attack in 1980 when the stock market collapsed. And in 2008, after they put in a property bubble, kept it going in, we had a stroke. And that's where we are today, folks. In ICU. In ICU.